Breaking news here. Shedeur Sanders' home was apparently broken into during the loss against the Ravens. This is a developing story, and obviously Sanders got to make his NFL debut, and multiple sources have confirmed, including Mary Kay, Pro Football Talk, Daniel Oyefusi, that this did occur. There are not many details, and this is something that has happened to multiple NFL players in recent memory, to be honest. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Joe Burrow as of recently as well. And so it's not certain if anything was taken from his home. There are no suspects yet, but we will keep you posted here on the Browns Report. Just something unfortunate that is news, and we do have to come on here and tell you guys about before we get into this other video that we had completely filmed for you guys of Stephen A. and some other NFL analysts diving into Shedeur's actual debut. Coming up on today's show, everybody is weighing in on Shedeur Sanders' debut. That means Stephen A. Smith, Dan Orlovsky, Cam Newton had things to say about it, and they sounded off in different ways. We're going to look at a lot of different opinions and voices here on what Shedeur's performance looked like. We're going to break down the entire thing and be fair here on today's show. So I want you guys to do the same thing with me in the comments section before we get into all of it. Be honest. Do you still have faith in Shedeur Sanders? It was just a quick half of football that we got to see. So type Y for yes or type N for no before we break it down here on the show and look at what the experts had to say. Get loud in that comment section. All right, here's the quote from Stephen A. Smith on ESPN this morning. He said about Shedeur's debut, "I'm definitely blaming Kevin Stefanski and his offensive coordinator. What the hell is going on? You're the QB too. Shouldn't you have reps? What's rare to see is a quarterback that looked grossly ill-prepared to be on the football field." And I think there's a point to be made here about the back half of that statement. It looked like it was clearly his first rep ever with the starters, and Kevin Stefanski confirmed that that's the case. He's never thrown to the starters since being drafted by the Cleveland Browns. That was the first time he ever has. It looked like it. It looked like it was all new to him in that second half. And so I think both those statements can be true that, yes, maybe the stats didn't look good, but yes, there are a lot of factors. It was just him being thrown into a game that he was not being prepared to get into. We're going to break down more of his performance here, but Cam Newton took it to another level and said, "I do not think Kevin Stefanski wants Shedeur Sanders to succeed in Cleveland. As a head coach, you are responsible for each player's development. If you're not developing players, no matter if it's a starter, a free agent, a second-round player, a third-rounder, you're not doing your job. Kevin Stefanski, bro, that's unacceptable. That's a finable offense for so many other reasons, because what are we doing? You're not developing the guys right, and you're putting all your eggs into Dillon Gabriel." And Cam Newton sounded off here. And I think what makes this point about the reps thing even more astonishing is it's week 11, and the offensive line, Wyatt Teller saying he's never even heard Shedeur's cadence, maybe once or twice. I mean, we're talking not a single rep has been given to Shedeur here. We're going to dive into that narrative, right? Is there a truth to this being an issue? And I still think there's a coaching issue as well. You know, when we were here on the show, Browns fans were screaming to fire Kevin Stefanski just a couple weeks ago. I don't think their feelings have changed on that matter. There is a coaching and scheme issue in Cleveland. That's been evident the past couple years. And Shannon Sharp called the idea of Shedeur not getting reps with the ones, he said it's malpractice. And Shannon Sharp said that, you know, when Elway would get reps, he said their backup would also get a few with the ones. There's a lot of conflicting reports on this. Dan Orlovsky, who also was a backup quarterback, said it's very common that the backup does not get first-team reps. So a lot of people saying different things based on their experience. Cam Newton, the quarterback as well, back in the day, saying that Shedeur should have been getting first-team reps. And so I understand that traditionally the backups don't get reps with the ones. And Kevin Stefanski said that today, that normally a vast majority, if not all the reps, go to the starter. This situation is very different, though, and there are still cases where backups do get reps with the ones. But why is it weird in Cleveland's perspective? Well, number one, Dillon Gabriel was the backup quarterback to start the year, and he was getting reps with the ones. Joe Flacco was the starter. Dillon was getting reps with the first-teamers. Shedeur is not, even though he has now been quarterback 2 for a couple weeks now. You also know that Shedeur was a play away from going into this game. And the play happened. Dillon Gabriel came up with a concussion and went into protocol. And, this was at halftime. I think they believe it happened in the first quarter. And then symptoms were being shown at halftime, so they put him in the protocol. So you knew that there was a chance he gets in every game now, and yet he's not prepared to go into the game at all. I think that's why Shannon Sharpe is calling it malpractice. And finally, what makes this different than every other situation is Jimmy Haslam, the Cleveland Browns owner, said in preseason that he wants both rookie quarterbacks to be evaluated this year, that it's important to look at both of them this season. And if that's the case, if the man at the very top of this whole thing is saying that, and your coach has not prepped the backup, the rookie, to go in when needed, it doesn't add up. This is why it is a weirder situation than most normal situations, because it's just 2 rookie quarterbacks on the roster. You might need both of them in at some point. You want to evaluate both of them at some point, and Shedeur has not been given any reps or preparation to be put into these games. We also have to bring up how bad the Browns' offensive line is, folks. And every quarterback has had to deal with this in Cleveland. It still remained true, and it looked, quite frankly, disgusting against Baltimore. Credit the Ravens. They knew what to do. They knew to start dialing up pressure. But this was the final 4th and 5 play that you see on your screen right here. I mean, Shedeur's barely even dropped back, and Wyatt Teller's already been blown by one of the Ravens defenders, and Kyle Hamilton was offside on this play. That's also why Teller was screaming about this. But look, do you see anybody open? What is Shedeur supposed to do? There's no time. It's a bad situation. And like I said, the offensive line, quite frankly, was just gross to watch. It was disgusting. And all our quarterbacks have had to deal with that. Shedeur had to deal with it maybe the worst against Baltimore. I mean, that is a tough defense to have to go up against. And when he actually had time, when the pass protection held up a little bit, he made a couple decent throws. There was the dot to Harold Fannin Jr. in clutch time for 25 yards, moved to chains, 3rd and 10, got it to Judy, who did the rest, dodged a few Ravens, got a first down. I mean, then I got to bring up the end zone shot again that could have been complete to Gage Larvidan. Look at this. Gage has got his hands on it. Producer Gage is looking at Gage Larvidan, who's got his hands on the football. And Awuzie, his hand is in there to knock it free. If this ball's caught, the conversation is completely different today. Touchdown tying drive to send this game to overtime. And then who knows what would happen from there. And so there were a couple decent throws. And obviously there were some sacks that maybe weren't great. Constant pressure on his face. Well, another thing about Shedeur, though, is he spins out of sacks. Right? I saw the play, maybe he missed Isaiah Bond in the end zone there, but he extended that play to even give us a chance. Should have been another sack, probably. That's something you don't have when you had Flacco or Gabriel in there. Shedeur can extend the play. And so for rookie quarterback to come in against the Ravens in Week 12, I know the stats aren't great. He still has that habit of sort of running backwards and taking a couple sacks, right? And that kind of is a blessing and a curse. To my point, it allowed him to buy time on some plays and evade pressure. Other times, it would result in a big loss. And so, he does have to look at some of that and improve on some of those things. There's a lot to go off of here. But from never having been given a first-team rep, from having a bad offensive line, I am going to reserve my judgment on one half of football. I want to see a complete week of preparation for Shedeur and a few starts, just like we've given to Gabriel before I made my assessment. And if I see it, I'm going to come on here and call it how it is. But I'm not going to go out there and crucify the man for one half of football with a lot of factors and no preparation. Skip Bayless actually went ahead and tweeted, Shedeur is a franchise quarterback. I saw it on Sunday. I don't know if I'm ready to go out and say that. Maybe he's the only one that's coming out and saying this take. But I did see some flashes, and I did see more mobility to the offense. I think you can do more with 12 out there than we can with any other quarterback that we've started this year, just because he can use his legs a little bit more. I like the plays where immediately they'll just have Shedeur rolling right. I think there's more you can call here. And remember, all the plays right now this game plan was made for Dillon Gabriel. They're 2 completely different quarterbacks. Another thing that Shannon Sharp told us is the quarterback will tell the coach on Sunday, hey, this is what I really liked. You have no idea which plays Shedeur likes. So he's just been thrown into a game plan that isn't meant for him. Preparation wasn't there for him, and he's never thrown to any of these players in his life. And so I want to see it with preparation. I want to see some more. I think it brought an energy into the stadium when he walked out there that, quite frankly, that Brown Stadium hasn't had all year long. The cheers when Shedeur walked onto the field, it's the type of palpable excitement that we need in Cleveland for this back half of the season. So I do want to see him get some full week of preparation and be the starter for the last few weeks for the Cleveland Browns. Now, Stefanski already said that if Gabriel clears protocol, Gabriel would be the starter. But I think there's a real chance still that Shedeur gets at least the last 4 or 5 games of the season. Also, another thing that I had been calling for and why I wanted Shedeur to be the starter was deep shots. Well, Dillon Gabriel has had a lot more attempts than Shedeur, and his longest completion came in the first half of the Ravens game, 26 yards. Shedeur already has a 25-yard completion. We already saw more accuracy going deep, I believe. And this is sort of what I'm talking about. Now, Cleveland doesn't necessarily have the scheme. They have a lot of issues that coming up on the show. We're going to talk about the Browns' issues and could any quarterback really succeed in this current Cleveland Browns offense? We're going to look at that very shortly. But first, I want to give a special shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Football is in full swing now on Sundays, and I'm big into daily fantasy with PrizePicks. I honestly love doing it. I'm obsessed with it. It makes every single game more entertaining on Sunday. And before the Browns play, I lock in on all my players in my lineup and their player projections. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks won't count it as a loss. And that's exactly what happened to me. I won money for this lineup right here because I had Baker Mayfield going for more than half a passing touchdown. Andre Schmidt, more than half a PAT made. Thank God we got a touchdown. And then I had Dillon Gabriel going for more than half an interception. But because he got hurt in the first half, this pick was voided, and I actually won money for this lineup. PrizePicks is one of the only apps that offers injury reboots. So go ahead, download the app today, and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. Let's talk about some of the Cleveland Browns' biggest issues. Why has it been so bad this year? Can a quarterback really succeed here? Well, right now, it's more evident now than ever that our offensive line is the biggest issue on this football team. It is so bad how our quarterback has no time to throw, no matter who it is, especially Shedeur in the second half yesterday once the Ravens started dialing it up. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's no time for any routes to develop. It's an issue. I still think there's coaching problems with the Cleveland Browns. I still think Kevin Stefanski deserves some of this blame. I mean, we're not going to just have short-term memory here and forget about every week up before this week that we were calling for Stefanski's job. It's the same guy. It's the same coach speak after games. It's an issue. And finally, there is a lack of targets. That is another issue Cleveland Browns fans will point to, is that our wide receiver room is one of the worst. I think that's honestly the least of the issues, though, here. I think if we had a great offensive line, we might even be able to make do with some of our weapons, like Judy, Njoku, Fannin, Tillman, Bond. Sure, we should absolutely get another wide receiver this offseason. I'd love to draft Carnell Tate. But the offensive line is the clear biggest issue for me here. And you're seeing that it's going to be near impossible for a quarterback to develop and have some time to throw. I mean, every single quarterback has looked bad lately for the Cleveland Browns. Gabriel, Flacco, Deshaun Watson was terrible. You name it, the past 2 years has not been pretty. We were just cycling in quarterbacks, and no one's developing well. And so that's probably why you saw what you saw in Shedeur's debut. You saw the stats that you saw. And this is why my biggest point is address those issues in the NFL draft this year. I want to load up on offensive tackles, get a good wide receiver, probably even fire Stefanski. because I don't want there to be any excuse for the next one. People get mad that I come on here and are stating the facts of the situation of Shedeur's half. But if those issues were eliminated, well, then there'd be nothing else we could say. So go ahead, draft those linemen, make it so you have a system where a quarterback can actually develop and show out, and we can give an honest evaluation of them. The other aspect of this is, well, maybe the Browns know just how bad their offense is. Maybe they know that their offensive line sucks so much, and that's why they've been starting Gabriel. Because Shedeur, as I've said, even though I think he has the much higher ceiling, the better intangibles, he is a bigger boom-bust candidate, as you saw in this game and as you saw in the Rams game in preseason. But when he's on, it's much better than we've seen, just like the preseason Panthers game. And so Gabriel, kind of the safer option, and maybe the Browns are literally like, hey, our system sucks. Let's just go with the guy that's barely going to move the ball a little bit. But even then, I mean, Gabriel and Flacco had turnovers and turnover-worthy plays. Like, I mean, no one's been good. So they either just don't want to start Shedeur because they haven't given him any reps at all, or they're saving him. They're saving him for a better situation, better offensive line next year, or a coach that actually wants him to play. Because, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't say that there's some truth to the fact that Stefanski doesn't want to turn to Shedeur. It's clear by his actions. So whatever's going on in that Browns front office behind the scenes, we'll keep you posted on. But what say you? When will Sanders finally be named the starter? Will it happen at some point this year? Is Deshaun Watson going to come into this mix? I mean, comment below when you think Shedeur will be the starter for the Cleveland Browns. And I really just hope we can fix these offensive issues in the off season. If you're still watching right now, I know you're a diehard Browns fan, so I want to use this time to give a special shout-out to Bernie Kosar. Prayers up for Bernie. Got a liver transplant. Was honestly a legendary Browns quarterback of himself. I mean, a lot of people, you probably watched him if you're an OG fan. Some people say that my long hair kind of looks like a young Bernie Kosar. I get that comparison in the comment section. So prayers up for Bernie. We love him. And we thank all the diehard fans for being on the channel, and hit that subscribe button for constant updates and Browns news. We thank you all so much for tuning in to this edition of today's show, and we'll see you very shortly here on the Browns Report.